And we're rolling. Anthony Russell, former light heavyweight out of Toronto. Tell us a little bit about how you got started boxing initially.
I initially got started, it runs in my family. My grandfather was a boxer. My dad was, a great athlete. He was, black belt taekwondo, black belt karate, professional kickboxer, boxer. He did it all, so it just kind of ran in the family.
And it had you listed actually as not right in Toronto proper, but some suburb of Toronto or something?
No, actually, I fought out of Brockton, Massachusetts.
Right, but originally when you started, so you were born in Toronto, but you moved to Brockton at a young age then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And interestingly about Brockton, seems like a lot of fighters come out of there, Hagler and some other guys. I guess there must be a nice boxing program there and a pretty solid gym.
Yeah, no, there's two gyms. You got the Capiello gym and you got the Peccinelli gym. They're both, they got hardcore fighters and, they got good coaches there.
And you did a long amateur career. Tell us a little bit about what you accomplished there.
Amateur career, I had over 100 fights, about 10 losses. Lost my first 10. I was pretty much undefeated until I retired amateur. Was Canadian champion, went over into Poland, won a Polish title, won a Hungarian title. Brampton Cup champion 3-4 years in a row, provincial champion 3-4 years in a row. So,
well, to begin with, going back after losing your first 10, that must have taken a certain amount of perseverance. A lot of guys would probably give up after their first 10 straight losses, but you kept going. What made you think that, after being 9-0 or 10-0, that you could still do something?
It just made me want to win. Just made me more hungry. Made me want to feel what it was like to win. And then once I started winning, it was like a drug. It was addicting. You did what it take to win.
And obviously, it's been pretty nice for you, at least on the amateur level. You get to do a little traveling, so that's always kind of good.
Yep, yep.
And meet a lot of people. Then you decided to turn pro. Actually, it looked like 2002.
Yep, I was 17 when I turned pro.
And tell us about what that decision was like and who you worked with and how that went.
Well, what happened was actually originally they kicked me off the Canadian team because they didn't like the way I fought. They didn't like my style. It's very American style. So once they kicked me off the team, I said, all right, fine. Had a hit list on all the people that I lost to my first 10. Beat everybody that I lost to. Then retired and I turned pro. And when I turned pro, I was with a trainer called Everton McEwen out of Toronto. He had fighters like Sid Vanderpool. He actually trained Carlos Newton in the MMA. I had Elvis Grant Phillips as a manager. And I had my first pro fight in Las Vegas at the Stardust on a Laila Ali undercard. And
you won several in a row, and then you lost your first one to a guy. Tell us about that one and what that was like.
My first loss, I actually got knocked out. It was a pretty bad knockout. I got hit in the spinal cord area, and I didn't wake up until halfway to the hospital. They told me I was non-responsive for about 5 minutes. So that was a pretty devastating loss.
So you got pretty lucky then in terms of you didn't suffer any permanent damage, because obviously that's something that can happen, but you continued to fight, and eventually you end up against a guy named Rodney Terry and you go 10 rounds with him. You end up coming out on the short end of the stick there. Tell us about that fight.
That fight, it was my first 10-round fight. I got a little nervous. I thought I lost the first 5 and I won the last 5. Personally, I thought it should have been a draw because it was a very good, even fight. It was a very, very exciting fight. But the judges saw it his way. He had the better day. That's fine.
And tell us about the styles and what contrasted in terms of what you were doing and what he was doing in the ring.
The first round, the first 5 rounds, I just wasn't getting my punches off at all. It was like I said, I was nervous, and he has a very straight ahead fight. He would just come in at you and just throw punches. The last half of the fight, I started being myself, started boxing, started moving, getting on my toes, spinning them off, getting them from angles that he didn't even know that I was hitting them from.
And so that kind of is reflective of your overall style and philosophy. Is a lot of movement, a lot of angles,
yep, hit
and
from angles
good defense.
That nobody knows that you're hitting from,
And And then you beat one guy, and then you have this no contest against the same guy, Rodney Terry, which was your last fight. It was for, I believe, an IBA light heavyweight title. So it was, a pretty significant fight in terms of your career, certainly. Mm-hmm. And, not a major belt, but a belt nonetheless. And then what happened there?
It was 3 rounds. I trained really hard for that fight because it was a rematch, and I'd never lose twice to the same person. The first 2 rounds, the first 3 rounds, I was just giving it to him. He couldn't handle the pressure that I was putting on him, and we came in close together. We got tied up. I stepped back, hit a left hook, split him wide open, but the ref was standing on the side that hit him with the hook. And Rodney Tony called it a headbutt, But if you watch it in slow motion, you can clearly see that it was a left hook.
So they stopped it on cuts and called it a no contest.
Yeah.
So you kind of got robbed, obviously, from your perspective there. Yeah. That's got to be a little bit disappointing, to say the least. And that was your last fight. So yep. What was that somehow, influencing your decision to retire, or what happened there?
I was burnt out. I'd been fighting for 12, 13 years, solid. Without a break, I was burnt out. That just aggravated me, I just felt like it was time just to put it up for a little bit,
And, well, you're still pretty young. You could conceivably come back and fight again, especially at the heavier weights. You get some older guys. Is that something that you have tossed around in your mind at all? Or?
It always comes up, I'm a fighter at heart, man, It always comes up, A fighter never really retires; they always come back. So,
certainly, on a Houston local card, you could probably do pretty well against a lot of the folks around here, I would imagine. How did you end up down here in Houston, anyway?
My wife's originally from Louisiana, and she wanted to be close to her mom, so we moved from Boston once I retired, moved down here.
But how did you pick Houston now, as opposed to, say, New Orleans or Baton Rouge or anywhere else?
There's really no opportunity as far as jobs go in Louisiana, so.
Right.
There's a lot more job opportunity here.
It's a good place to be from an economic standpoint. Now, do you do anything else right now aside from coaching here at the 4 Ounce Fight Club?
Right now, no. I just coach right now.
And tell us a little bit about your philosophy of coaching and how you how you came to be here at the 4 Ounce.
Originally I did have a job here, and my wife works for a staffing agency, and the owner of 4 Ounce, Jeremy, has a friend, Johnny, and he actually went to my wife to find a job, and my wife told him about me, and then he told me about the gym. So I came down and I just stepped in, started talking to Jeremy, did a little sparring with Josh, and just fell in love with the gym.
And tell us a little bit about your philosophy of training here, and how you go about teaching folks.
I train everybody like it's a championship fight. Even if they're not fighting yet, I got a couple of guys in there that want to do amateur fights and they haven't fought yet. But I push them. I push them hard. I teach them. Basically, I teach them what I used to, how I used to fight, and I want them to take it and put their own spin on it. I teach them, not to get hit. I teach them how to slip, how to move, how to be on their toes, how to hit from angles and stuff. But I also want them to put their own little spice into it.
And you mentioned you were fighting American style as opposed to Canadian style. I mean,
yeah.
What do you see as the contrast there?
The way the Canadians fight is very technical. They're very hands up, ding, 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 catch punches. They hide behind the hands, and then they throw punches. They hide behind the hands. Americans very loose. They got their hands down. They're very relaxed. They pick their shots. That's how I fight. I like to pick my shots. I like to move. I like to look good.
Okay. All right. Well, best of luck to you, and hopefully we'll see you in the ring here sometimes if you get the urge. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right.